The nurse read the date twice. Then she looked at my sister. This form says November 18th. Kendra folded her arms. Right. Grandma changed her medical contact after she got to the hospital. The nurse's expression changed. Not dramatically. She didn't gasp or call security. She just placed one finger on the bottom of the form and said, very carefully, Mrs. Callahan was brought into this hospital with a stroke on November 18th. At the time shown here, she was sedated in the neurological intensive care unit. My mother stopped digging through her purse. Kendra said, then the time must be wrong. It was submitted electronically at 9:14 that night. I looked through the glass wall at my grandmother, who was asleep beneath 3 thin hospital blankets. For 14 weeks, my sister had insisted Grandma had personally removed me as her medical contact because I was controlling, unavailable, and too focused on logistics. Now Grandma was back in the hospital after missing an important blood test nobody had told me about. And the form supposedly proving she didn't want me involved had been submitted while she couldn't speak, hold a pen, or even unlock her own phone. By 4 that afternoon, a hospital social worker was asking Kendra, who had accessed Grandma's patient portal. By 6, my mother was begging me not to destroy the family over a clerical mistake. And 2 days later, I learned the form wasn't the biggest lie my sister had told. It was just the first one with a date on it. If you've ever been called difficult the moment you stopped making everyone else's life easy, you'll probably understand why I didn't raise my voice that day. I'd spent 46 years being useful. I was about to find out how much of my family depended on me never asking who got the credit. My name is Rachel Maddox, although everyone except my mother calls me Ray. I live outside Richmond, Virginia, and I manage dispatch operations for the regional paratransit service. If you've never heard of paratransit, we provide scheduled transportation for elderly and disabled passengers who can't use regular bus routes. My workday is basically a live-action puzzle involving 73 vehicles, several hundred passengers, road construction, medical appointments, weather, and at least one driver who swears he's 2 minutes away when the GPS says otherwise. I'm good at it. Not because I'm some kind of genius. I just think in handoffs. Who called whom? Who confirmed the pickup? What happens if the first plan fails? Where does responsibility change hands? Most disasters don't begin with one huge mistake. They begin with 2 people each assuming the other person handled something. That was true at work. It was also true in my family, except nobody ever assumed I'd handled something. They knew I had. My grandmother, Evelyn Callahan, was 84 when all this happened. She'd managed an elementary school cafeteria for 31 years and still referred to every meal as service. Thanksgiving wasn't dinner. It was first service at 2. A plate of sandwiches during a storm was cold service. If you stood in her kitchen too long without helping, she'd hand you a spoon and say, "Don't block the line." Grandma was 5'2", wore her white hair in the same soft curls she'd had since the Clinton administration, and could tell whether a pie crust had enough salt by looking at it. Her house was a little brick ranch in North Chesterfield with green shutters, a squeaky hallway floor, and a kitchen that hadn't been remodeled since 1987 because, according to Grandma, the cabinets still close. What are people doing to cabinets that requires replacing them every 6 years? In the middle of her kitchen table sat a blue enamel serving bowl with a white chip along the rim. Grandma had bought it at a church rummage sale before I was born. It had held potato salad, dinner rolls, Halloween candy, sewing supplies, unopened mail, and once, for reasons no one could explain, half a dozen spark plugs. Every Sunday, somebody brought that bowl to the table full. For years, that somebody was me. My sister Kendra was 7 years younger than I was. Where I built schedules, Kendra built atmospheres. She could walk into a bare room with $20 worth of grocery store flowers and make it look like somebody had planned an event. She remembered birthdays, noticed haircuts, hugged people with both arms, and could make a stranger feel fascinating in under 3 minutes. She was funny, warm, and exhausting. She also had a habit of beginning new chapters before she'd finished paying for the previous ones. At 39, she'd been a wedding florist, a lifestyle photographer, a social media consultant, and for 9 confusing months, the founder of a candle company whose main product smelled like cedar and overdue invoices. Her marriage to Eric ended the previous spring. Her flower studio closed 3 months later. By September, she was sleeping in Mom's guest room with 6 boxes of artificial peonies and saying she needed time to figure out what the next version of her life looked like. Mom worried about Kendra constantly. She didn't worry about me. That sounds like a compliment until you live inside it. My father left when I was 12 and Kendra was 5. He didn't disappear completely. He sent birthday cards, took us to miniature golf twice a year, and spent the rest of his energy explaining why the child support check would be late. Mom worked the billing desk at an orthopedic practice. Grandma filled in everywhere else. I learned to pack Kendra's lunch, sign my own field trip slips, and start dinner before Mom got home. Nobody sat me down and told me I was the backup adult. Families rarely announce those jobs. They just keep praising you every time you perform them until the praise starts feeling like love. Our family had a saying, "Do what needs doing, then let it go." It came from Grandma's cafeteria days. If a milk carton split or a tray hit the floor, you cleaned it up and kept the line moving. You didn't waste time assigning blame while 200 children waited for lunch. It was sensible advice. Then our family turned it into a system. Whenever something needed doing, I did it. Whenever I asked why I was always the one doing it, I was told to let it go. When Mom had her gallbladder removed, I took 4 days off, labeled her medications, stocked her freezer, and slept on her couch. Kendra brought a lavender candle and posted a photograph captioned, "Taking care of our mama." Mom commented, "What would I do without my girls?" Plural. When Grandma turned 80, I reserved the church hall, coordinated food for 63 people, rented chairs, collected photographs, and picked up Uncle Pete from the airport. Kendra arrived 40 minutes late with a flower arch. It was gorgeous. I'll give her that. For the next 3 years, people called it the beautiful party Kendra threw. When a windstorm dropped a maple limb across Grandma's driveway, I spent Saturday calling tree companies and Sunday hauling branches. Kendra showed up at sunset with hot chocolate. Grandma squeezed her hand and said, "You always know what people need." I was standing 10 feet away holding a chainsaw. I wish I could say I recognized the pattern and set a healthy boundary at 28. I didn't. I became more efficient. That was my mistake. If I could solve problems before anyone felt uncomfortable, I didn't have to ask whether they would show up for me. If I never needed anything, nobody could disappoint me. And if I stayed useful, I always had a place. The November Grandma had her stroke. I was at work trying to reroute 3 vans around a gas leak when my phone rang. It was Mrs. Hanley from across the street. "Ray, your grandma's sitting on her front steps," she said. She can't seem to get her words out. I don't remember leaving my desk. I remember my supervisor taking the radio from my hand. I remember calling 911 from the parking lot. And I remember reaching Grandma's house while the paramedics were loading her into the ambulance. She looked at me through the open doors and tried to speak. Only one word came out clearly. "Blue." I thought she was confused. Then I saw the blue enamel bowl sitting on the kitchen counter through the open front door. Grandma had been mixing biscuit dough when the stroke started. Flour covered one side of the bowl. The other side was clean where her hand had apparently wiped across it, trying to hold herself steady. I locked the house, grabbed her purse and medication list, and followed the ambulance. Kendra arrived at the hospital about an hour later. She was wearing black leggings, a camel-colored coat, and enough perfume for a much happier occasion. Mom came behind her, already crying. I'd registered Grandma, given the emergency physician her medication list, called her primary care office, notified Uncle Pete in Arizona, and texted my son Caleb, so he wouldn't hear about it from Facebook. Kendra hugged me in the hallway. "What do they know?" "Possible stroke. They're taking her for imaging." "Can we see her?" "Not yet." "Did you call Mom?" I looked over Kendra's shoulder at Mom, who was standing 6 feet away. "Yes." "Okay," she said. "I'm just trying to help." That sentence had always been Kendra's shield. She wasn't questioning me. She was trying to help. She wasn't taking over. She was trying to help. She wasn't making something about herself. She was processing differently. By 8 that evening, doctors had removed a clot. Grandma was stable, but she was sedated and being monitored in the neuro ICU. The neurologist told us the next 24 hours mattered. Mom asked the same question 4 different ways. Kendra cried against the wall. I wrote down the doctor's answers in the Notes app on my phone because I knew nobody would remember them. At around 8:45, a nurse told us only one person could stay near the unit phone overnight. Mom was too upset. I volunteered. Kendra said, "You've been here all day. Go get a shower." "I'll stay." I looked at her. She looked exhausted but sincere. "Call me if anything changes." "I will." I handed her Grandma's purse because the nurse had said they needed a copy of her insurance card. Her phone was inside. That decision bothered me for months. Not because giving Kendra the purse was unreasonable. Any normal person would have done it. It bothered me because I kept treating it like the moment I'd caused everything that came afterward. That was another habit of mine. If I could identify the exact place where I'd made the wrong choice, I could pretend other people's choices were still under my control. I went home shortly after 9. The medical contact form was submitted at 9:14. I didn't know that yet. The next morning, Grandma opened her eyes. By afternoon, she recognized us. Her speech was slow and frustrating for her, but it was there. When I walked into the room, she lifted one hand and said, "Blue bowl." "You were making biscuits," I told her. She frowned. "Kendra moved it." I thought she meant Kendra had cleaned the kitchen. "Don't worry about the bowl." Grandma closed her eyes. I kissed her forehead and assumed the medication was making her drift. Kendra stood near the window, answering messages on Grandma's phone. I asked why she had it. "People keep calling." "Who?" "Church people. Aunt Diane. Everybody." "I can take it." "I've got it, Ray." Her voice had an edge. Mom looked up from her chair. "Don't make this a thing. We're all tired." So I let it go. Grandma came home 4 days later with weakness on her right side and instructions for physical therapy, speech therapy, medication changes, and follow-up appointments. The hospital recommended that somebody stay with her temporarily. Before I could say anything, Mom suggested Kendra. "It makes sense," she said. "Kendra's between things right now, and you've got that crazy work schedule." Kendra looked at Grandma. "Only if you want me." Grandma hesitated. It wasn't a dramatic hesitation. Maybe 2 seconds. But I saw it. Then Grandma nodded. For a little while. I told myself it was perfect. Kendra needed somewhere to live. Grandma needed help. I could coordinate everything without sleeping on another couch. I spent the weekend setting up the house. I arranged medications in a weekly dispenser and made a simple chart for the refrigerator. I put physical therapy exercises in clear sleeves so Grandma could mark them with a dry erase pen. I programmed appointment reminders into the kitchen speaker and arranged paratransit rides for the days I couldn't drive her. I created a list of every provider, number, medication, dosage, and follow-up date. Kendra watched me tape it inside a cabinet. You know, normal people just use a calendar, right? Normal people forget things. I'm living here, and you've forgotten your own dentist appointment 3 times. Twice. Kendra. Fine. The chart is helpful. Grandma sat at the table with the blue bowl in front of her, sorting clementines. "Do what needs doing," she said. "Then let it go." I laughed. Everybody really likes the second half of that sentence. Grandma gave me a look, but Kendra laughed. At the time, it felt almost affectionate. The first few weeks went well. At least, that's what I thought. Kendra sent photos of Grandma doing her exercises. She cooked dinner. She drove her to church. She bought matching slippers and somehow convinced Grandma to let her rearrange the living room. Grandma's speech improved quickly. On Sundays, I filled the blue bowl with rolls or salad and brought it to the table. Kendra talked about turning her experience with Grandma into something professional. "There are so many families who don't know how to do this," she said one evening. "The appointments, the house, the emotional side. They're overwhelmed." "You've been doing it for 3 weeks," I said. She smiled. "Exactly. And I can already see what's missing." I should mention that Kendra had a specific smile when she wanted you to feel mean for being accurate. Mom stepped in immediately. "I think it's wonderful she's finding purpose in this." I didn't say it wasn't. "You had a tone." I had a sentence. Grandma tapped her fork against her plate. "Care isn't a contest." That became the new phrase. Anytime I asked whether Grandma had done her exercises, care wasn't a contest. If I mentioned that a refill was late, care wasn't a contest. When Kendra posted a long tribute about sacrificing her career to become Grandma's full-time caregiver, and I pointed out that she hadn't had a career to sacrifice at that particular moment, Mom called me jealous. "Why can't you just be proud of her?" "I'm glad she's helping Grandma. I don't like the fake story. It's social media, Ray. Everyone simplifies." She wrote that she designed Grandma's entire recovery system. "You don't own a medication chart." "No, I just made that one." Mom sighed. "There you go, keeping score." That was December. By Christmas, Kendra had a name for her new business. Golden Hour Senior Concierge. I'll admit, it was a good name. She wasn't offering nursing or medical treatment. The business would coordinate transportation, meal delivery, home organization, appointment reminders, family updates, and companionship for older adults who wanted to stay in their homes. In other words, she planned to sell the exact collection of tasks I'd been performing for free since Grandma's stroke. Still, the idea itself wasn't bad. There was a real need for it. I even helped. That part is embarrassing, but it matters. Kendra called me one night and said she couldn't figure out how many clients one coordinator could realistically manage. I made her a capacity model. She asked how to plan transportation windows. I built a template. She wanted to know what happened when a client missed an appointment, a driver arrived late, or a family member failed to confirm. I wrote an escalation process. She sent me a heart emoji and said, "This is why we make such a great team." For a little while, I let myself believe that. Maybe this was finally the thing we could do together. Maybe Kendra had the warmth and I had the structure. Maybe Mom would see that I wasn't cold. I just expressed care through preparation. Maybe the family story could change. Then Kendra took my name off Grandma's medical contacts. I found out in January when I called Grandma's cardiology office to confirm a follow-up. The receptionist said she couldn't discuss the appointment with me. "You've called me before. I'm sorry, but you're not listed on the current authorization. I'm her primary contact. I have Kendra Maddox. That's her other granddaughter. She's listed as the only approved family contact." I stood in the employee stairwell at work, holding my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. "Can you tell me when that changed? I'm not able to discuss anything else." I called Kendra. She answered on the fourth ring. "What? Why am I not on Grandma's medical contact form?" A pause. "Not long. Just long enough. Grandma changed it." "Why?" "Because I'm the one living here. That doesn't require removing me." She said having two people involved was confusing. "Grandma said that?" "Yes." "Put her on the phone. She's sleeping. It's 11:30 in the morning. She had therapy. Her therapy is tomorrow." Kendra exhaled sharply. "This is exactly why she changed it. You interrogate everybody." I asked 4 questions. "You manage her like she's one of your buses." That landed because it was designed to. I went quiet. Kendra softened her voice. "Look, Ray, I know you mean well. But Grandma feels like you're always checking up on us." "On you. See, I want to hear it from her." "You can. When she wakes up." Grandma called me that evening. Her voice sounded tired. "Kendra says you're upset." "I'm confused. Did you remove me as your medical contact?" There was a silence. Then Grandma said, "Kendra's here more." "That isn't what I asked. I don't want you girls fighting." "Grandma, she needs something that's hers, Ray." I sat down at my kitchen table. That answer told me more than yes would have. "Did Mom talk to you about this?" "She worries about Kendra." "So do you want me involved in your medical care or not?" Grandma's voice became small. Not weak. Small. "I want peace." I should have pushed harder. Instead, I said, "Okay." Because peace, in my family, had always meant the person with the most self-control swallowed whatever everyone else refused to deal with. After that, information came to me secondhand. Kendra said cardiology was pleased. She said Grandma's blood pressure was basically perfect. She said the speech therapist had discharged her. She said a blood test was rescheduled because the clinic had made a mistake. Whenever I asked Grandma directly, she glanced toward the hallway before answering. That bothered me. So did the shoes. Grandma had never worn shoes inside her house. She considered it a moral failure on the level of lying on your taxes. But twice in February, I visited and found her sitting in the living room wearing her coat and walking shoes. The first time, she said she thought they were going out. The second time, she had her purse in her lap. "Where are you headed?" Kendra said the car was coming. "What car?" "The medical car." I checked the calendar. Nothing was written down. Kendra came downstairs 20 minutes later in pajamas. "Oh, Grandma. That's next Thursday." Grandma looked embarrassed. "I thought you said today." "Nope. You told me to be ready at 9. I said next time we need to be ready by 9. Kendra winked at me like this was a cute example of Grandma getting older. But Grandma didn't take off her coat for another hour. 3 days later, she called me at work and asked if I still had the old ride numbers. "What old ride numbers?" "For the buses." "You mean your paratransit reservations?" Kendra says they changed. "They haven't." "Oh, do you need a ride?" "No. No, honey. She's handling it." Then she hung up. I drove over after work. Kendra met me on the porch. "You can't keep showing up to inspect me." Grandma asked about transportation. She gets confused. She didn't sound confused. You're not here all day. That's why I ask questions. And every question makes her feel like you think I'm incompetent. I lowered my voice. This isn't about your feelings. Of course not. Nothing ever is unless it fits on one of your lists. That was the first time I came close to walking away completely. But then Grandma called from inside and asked if I'd brought rolls. So I went in. I filled the blue bowl. I sat at the table. And I pretended we were still having Sunday dinner instead of performing a family ritual around something none of us wanted to name. On February 13th, Grandma was supposed to have blood drawn after a change to her blood pressure medication. I didn't know the appointment had been canceled. I found that out later. What I knew was that on February 27th, Mrs. Hanley called me at 7:12 in the morning. Again, she said an ambulance was outside Grandma's house. Again, this time Kendra was there. And nobody had called me. I reached St. Catherine's Medical Center just before 8. At the emergency desk, the clerk asked my relationship to the patient. I'm her granddaughter and medical contact. She checked the screen. Kendra Maddox is listed. I was her contact for 6 years. I can only tell you what's here. I found my mother in the waiting room. Where is she? They're running tests. What happened? Kendra found her on the bathroom floor. Is she conscious? Yes, but she's confused. What did the doctor say? Dehydration. Maybe her kidneys. I don't know all the terminology. Where's Kendra? With her. I looked toward the locked treatment doors. So Kendra can go in, but I can't? Mom rubbed both hands over her face. Please don't start. Start what? Making this about the contact thing. Grandma is in the emergency room after collapsing. And Kendra did exactly what she was supposed to do. Except call me. She called me. I laughed once. I didn't mean to. The sound just came out. Mom's face tightened. Care isn't a contest, Rachel. Then why does Kendra keep needing to win it? A nurse opened the doors and called Mom's name before she could answer. Grandma was admitted for severe dehydration, low sodium, and an acute kidney injury. The doctors believed her recently increased diuretic had contributed. The blood test she'd missed was supposed to catch that kind of problem early. Kendra told the doctor the clinic had canceled it. When the doctor asked which clinic employee had called, Kendra said she didn't remember. I stood at the end of Grandma's bed while everyone talked around me. Grandma looked pale and tiny. Her eyes moved toward me. You came. Of course I came. Kendra said you had a route emergency. I looked at my sister. She was staring at the monitor. What route emergency? I asked. Kendra answered without looking at me. I told her you might be busy. That isn't what she said. Can we not do this right now? Nurse Patrice Coleman was standing at the computer near the wall. She was probably in her early 50s, with silver threaded through her braids and the calm face of someone who had watched hundreds of families become their worst selves beneath fluorescent lighting. Mrs. Callahan, she said, would you like Rachel included when we discuss your care? Grandma nodded. Yes. Kendra stepped forward. I'm her authorized medical contact. Patrice looked at the screen. I see that. Grandma changed it after her stroke. Patrice clicked through several pages. I watched her eyes stop. When was that change made? Kendra's shoulders lifted slightly. I don't know. November? Patrice printed the form. The machine hummed. Then she read the date. November 18th. 9:14 p.m. For one strange second, nobody spoke. Patrice looked at Grandma's wristband, then back at the form. I was working neuro that week, she said. Mrs. Callahan came in on the 18th. Kendra said, yes. That's when she changed it. No. At 9:14 that night, she was sedated after a thrombectomy. Mom finally stopped searching through her purse. The time must be wrong, Kendra said. It's an electronic submission. Maybe she filled it out earlier. The portal record shows when it was uploaded. I helped her. Patrice's voice stayed neutral. Did Mrs. Callahan ask you to submit this form? Yes. Grandma turned her head. It took effort. No. Kendra stared at her. Grandma, you remember. We talked about simplifying everything. You said Rachel was tired of doing it. My whole body went cold. I never said that. Kendra's face flushed. She was confused after the stroke. Patrice placed the form face down. Mrs. Callahan, do you want Kendra to remain your only medical contact? Grandma looked from Kendra to Mom. Then to me. No. Mom whispered, Mother. Grandma's mouth tightened. I want Rachel. Kendra walked out. Mom followed her. And I stayed beside the hospital bed, feeling no victory at all. That's the part people don't tell you about finally being proven right. Sometimes it doesn't feel satisfying. Sometimes it feels like discovering the fire alarm works while your house is already burning. Patrice contacted the hospital's patient advocate and social work department. She explained that the form didn't automatically give Kendra legal control over Grandma's decisions, but it did authorize communication and had been used to restrict who received information. Because Grandma disputed approving it, the hospital needed to investigate how it had been submitted. Grandma fell asleep. Patrice pulled a chair beside me. "You look like you're trying to solve 6 things at once," she said. "That's usually how I solve one thing. Can I give you one? Please. Your grandmother is stable. Focus on that today." I nodded. Then I cried in the restroom so hard I had to sit on the closed toilet lid. Not because Kendra had taken my name off a form. Because Grandma had believed I was tired of her. That was the lie underneath the lie. Kendra hadn't just replaced me. She had translated my absence for Grandma. Every time I was at work, Kendra could explain what it meant. Every time a ride failed, a call went unanswered, or an appointment changed, Kendra got to decide which story Grandma heard. And apparently the story was that I'd finally become too busy to care. Mom found me in the cafeteria an hour later. She placed a cup of coffee in front of me and sat down. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she said, "Kendra made a mistake. Did you know? She told me Grandma wanted one point of contact. Did you know when the form was submitted? No. Did you know Kendra used Grandma's phone? I knew she was helping with the portal. Mom, Grandma gave her the password. Did she?" Mom stirred her coffee, even though she hadn't added anything. Kendra was under enormous pressure. I leaned back. There it is. What? The reason? I'm not excusing it. You haven't said one thing about what this did to Grandma. Because Grandma is fine. She is in the hospital. You know what I mean? No, I really don't. Mom lowered her voice. Kendra finally has something going well. Golden Hour is getting attention. She has meetings with 2 retirement communities and a small business grant panel next week. If people hear she's being investigated for some hospital form issue. Stop. I'm asking you to think before you react. She submitted a medical form while Grandma was unconscious. She shouldn't have done that. And then used it to shut me out. You 2 have always had control issues with each other. I stared at her. That was impressive, even for Mom. You turned fraud into a sibling communication problem in under 30 seconds. Don't use words like fraud. What word would make you more comfortable? Rachel, please. Do what needs doing, then let it go. I stood. No. Mom blinked. It was a tiny word. I don't think she'd ever heard me use it without attaching an alternative plan. No, but I can do Tuesday. No, but I already called someone. No, but here's what will work. This time there was nothing after it. What do you mean, no? I mean, I'm not letting this go. You're angry. I am. So take a day. I've taken about 20 years. I walked away before she could answer. That afternoon, the social worker, Jordan Lee, met with Grandma privately. Then Jordan met with me with Grandma's permission. They asked who had been managing medications, appointments, transportation, meals, and home care before and after the stroke. I told the truth. Before the stroke, mostly me and Grandma. After the stroke, supposedly Kendra, with me doing the systems behind it. Supposedly, Jordan asked. I don't know anymore. Jordan asked whether Grandma had a durable medical power of attorney. She didn't. She'd avoided it because she hated paperwork involving death, incapacity, or people waiting around for my furniture. An emergency contact isn't a substitute for legal planning, Jordan said. And neither is a family assumption. That sentence stayed with me. My family had been running on assumptions for decades. I would handle things. Kendra needed grace. Mom knew best. Grandma wanted peace. Nobody had written those rules down, but we followed them more faithfully than any legal document. Jordan asked me to gather only what Grandma authorized: medication history, transportation records, upcoming appointments, and any messages relevant to the missed blood test. I went to Grandma's house that evening. Kendra's car was gone. Mom had driven her to her apartment, or former apartment, or wherever she was staying that night. I didn't ask. The house felt staged. There were fresh flowers on the dining table. Golden Hour brochures were stacked near the front door. A ring light stood folded behind the sofa. In the kitchen, the blue bowl was filled with lemons. Grandma didn't buy lemons in February. She bought 2 at a time because, in her words, fruit shouldn't be decorative. I opened the cabinet where I'd taped the provider list. It was gone. The medication chart had been replaced with a prettier version carrying the golden hour logo. My instructions. My categories. Even my wording. At the bottom it said, "The golden hour method, care that feels like family." I took a photograph. Then I noticed a stack of appointment cards tucked behind the bread box. 3 were old. One was for the blood test on February 13th. Across the front, in Kendra's handwriting, was one word. Cancelled. I photographed that too. Grandma's tablet was charging on the counter. I didn't open it. I wasn't going to become Kendra just because Kendra had crossed a line. Instead, I called Jordan and asked how Grandma could authorize a review of her own patient portal history. Jordan said they would help us the next morning. Before I left, I looked at the blue bowl. One lemon still had a grocery sticker on it. Behind the bowl was a small white card printed with the golden hour logo. On the back, Kendra had written, "Shoot schedule. February 13 kitchen lifestyle, 10:30 medication system, 11:15 grandma interview, noon grant video, 1 o'clock. February 13th. The day of the blood test. I sat down at the kitchen table. The canceled appointment hadn't conflicted with an emergency. It had conflicted with a photo shoot about how well Kendra managed Grandma's appointments. I'm not gonna lie. That was the moment I wanted revenge. Not justice. Not clarity. Revenge. I wanted to drive straight to wherever Kendra was and place that card in front of her. I wanted to ask how many takes Grandma had done while wearing the shoes she'd put on for the appointment she thought she still had. I wanted to rip every golden hour brochure in half. Instead, I took a picture of the card, left it exactly where it was, and went home. Quiet choices had never looked powerful to me before. I was beginning to understand that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop warning people before their own decisions reach them. The next morning, Grandma's portal history answered one question and opened 5 more. The contact form had been uploaded from Grandma's tablet on November 18th at 9:14 p.m. At 9:17, my name and phone number were deleted. At 9:22, the communication preference was changed so all appointment calls went to Kendra. Over the following 14 weeks, 7 appointment notifications had gone to my sister. 2 had been rescheduled. 1, the blood test, had been canceled through the portal at 8:03 p.m. on February 12th. The cancellation note said, "Patient unavailable. Caregiver will reschedule." Kendra had never rescheduled it. Jordan didn't accuse anyone. They printed the activity log and asked Grandma whether she recognized the changes. Grandma read slowly. Her right hand trembled against the paper. "No. Did you ever ask Kendra to remove Rachel? No. Did you give Kendra permission to access your portal? I gave her my phone in the hospital. Did you give her your password?" Grandma looked ashamed. "It was in my purse. I knew exactly where." Years earlier, I'd made Grandma an emergency card with her medication allergies, insurance information, and important phone numbers. She'd written her phone code on the back in pencil because she was afraid she'd forget it. I'd told her not to. She'd said, "Who's going to steal an old woman's purse?" Nobody had needed to steal it. Grandma's voice cracked. She told me Rachel asked her to take it over. I looked down. "When?" "After I got home. She said you'd done enough." "I never said that. I know that now. That should have comforted me. It didn't." Grandma twisted the corner of the blanket. "I thought maybe you were tired of me." I pulled my chair closer. "I was tired. I wasn't tired of you. There's a difference." "Yes. I should have asked. I should have noticed sooner." Jordan interrupted gently. "You're both taking responsibility for information neither of you created. That shut us up." Grandma almost smiled. The hospital temporarily removed Kendra from the contact list. Grandma added me back, along with Jordan's recommendation that we name a secondary contact who wasn't involved in the conflict. Mom objected. "Why bring a stranger into family business?" Jordan answered before I could. "Because medical care isn't family business. It's Mrs. Callahan's business." Grandma chose her longtime neighbor, Mrs. Hanley, as the secondary contact. For the first time, I saw Mom understand that this might not be resolved around somebody's kitchen table. Kendra didn't visit that day. She sent Grandma flowers. White roses, pale blue hydrangeas, and eucalyptus in a glass vase. The arrangement was beautiful. The card said, "I'm sorry this got misunderstood. Everything I did was to protect you. Love, Kendra." Grandma read it twice. Then she asked me to put the flowers where she couldn't see them. The family reaction came in waves. First came minimization. Mom said Kendra had only tried to streamline communication. Uncle Pete called from Arizona and said technology confused everyone. Aunt Diane texted me that medical portals are tricky and urged me not to damage my relationship with my sister. Then came guilt. Kendra sent me a 4-minute voice message about her divorce, her failed business, and how humiliating it had been to move into Grandma's house. "You have no idea what it's like to be the family screw-up," she said. "You walk into a room and everyone trusts you. I walk in and everybody waits for me to fail." For about 10 seconds, I felt sorry for her. Then she continued, "I needed Grandma to trust me without checking with you every 5 minutes. You don't leave room for anyone else to be capable." That was Kendra's gift. She could place one true sentence beside 3 lies and make you question the whole table. I could be controlling. I did step in too quickly. Sometimes I corrected people when the kinder thing would have been to let them finish. But I hadn't removed Kendra from a medical form while she was unconscious. I replied with one sentence. "You didn't ask for room. You erased me." She didn't answer. After guilt came love bombing. Mom offered to bring dinner. Aunt Diane sent a photograph of Kendra and me at the beach when we were children. Kendra emailed a draft Golden Hour website with my transportation template featured under a section called Our Proven Care System. At the top she'd written, "This can still be ours." I closed the email. Then the consequences started. With Grandma hospitalized and Kendra no longer trusted to manage her care, everyone expected me to step back into my old position. Mom asked me to call cardiology. I told her the hospital care coordinator was handling it. Kendra asked where I kept Grandma's insurance notes. I told her Grandma had authorized Jordan to organize the information. Aunt Diane asked whether I could prepare meals for the freezer before discharge. I sent her a link to a local meal delivery service. Mom stared at me like I'd suggested feeding Grandma drywall. "You know she hates delivered food. Then you can cook. I don't have your freezer system. It's containers and a marker, Mom. You're punishing Grandma." "No, Grandma will be cared for. I'm just not doing everyone's part anymore." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "This isn't who you are." That hurt more than I expected. Because she meant it. In her mind, generosity wasn't something I did. It was something I was. Which meant stopping, even temporarily, looked like a personality defect. "I'm still her granddaughter," I said. "I'm not the unpaid department everyone forgot was a person." Mom shook her head. "You always make things sound so cold." "No, I make them clear." The blood test investigation brought in Grandma's cardiologist. He explained that the missed lab didn't single-handedly cause her hospitalization, but it had removed an opportunity to catch the medication problem earlier. That distinction mattered. I didn't want to build a false case because I was angry. Kendra's decision had been reckless. It didn't mean she'd intentionally tried to make Grandma sick. I kept reminding myself of that, especially after I found the website. Golden Hour's public page went live while Grandma was still in the hospital. The homepage featured a photograph of Kendra sitting beside Grandma at the kitchen table. The blue bowl of lemons sat between them. Grandma wore a pale blue cardigan. Kendra had one hand over hers. The headline read, "I built Golden Hour while caring for the woman who raised me." Below it, Kendra described how she had stepped away from a thriving creative career to coordinate Grandma's stroke recovery. She claimed she had designed a complete care management system from scratch. She wrote that Grandma's missed appointments had dropped to 0. Then I saw the video. Grandma was seated in her living room, speaking carefully. "Kendra makes sure I get where I need to go." There was a cut. "She takes care of everything." Another cut. "I don't know what I'd do without her." The video had been uploaded on February 14th. The shoot schedule beside the blue bowl had been February 13th. Grandma's canceled blood test card was still behind the bread box. If you've ever watched someone turn your invisible work into their public identity, you know the anger is strangely physical. My hands went numb. My face became hot. And underneath the anger was something worse. I wanted Mom to see it and finally say, "Ray, this was yours. Not the business. Not the website. The truth." I still wanted my mother to choose me. That was the hook buried deepest. The hospital could correct a contact form. It couldn't correct 40 years of me waiting for Mom to notice who kept the line moving. I showed the website to Grandma the following morning. She watched the video without blinking. When it ended, she said, "She asked me questions for almost 2 hours. Did you agree to be on the website?" She said it was for a class. Did you say she never missed an appointment? She kept asking until I said something close enough. Grandma touched the blanket. I thought the blood test was after the pictures. It was supposed to be that morning. Her face changed. That tiny white chute card had just reassembled the entire day for her. I was dressed at 8. I didn't say anything. I had my purse. I know. She said the clinic called. They didn't. Grandma looked toward the window. After the pictures, she told me I'd gotten the date wrong. That explained the shoes. It explained the purse in Grandma's lap. It explained why she'd started asking me whether the ride numbers had changed. Kendra hadn't merely missed an appointment. She'd made Grandma doubt her own memory to conceal it. Grandma pressed both hands flat against the blanket. I'm not losing my mind. No. She made me think I was. That was the first time Grandma got angry. Not loud. Grandma's anger was never loud. She became precise. Call the woman from the hospital. Jordan. Yes. What do you want to tell them? All of it. The second layer reveal came from a business grant packet. Jordan asked whether Grandma had signed any releases allowing Golden Hour to use her image or health story. Grandma didn't remember signing one. Kendra insisted she had. Mom arrived at the hospital with a copy. She signed this in January, Mom said. Grandma studied the signature. It looks like mine. Because it is yours, Mom said quickly. The form authorized Golden Hour to use Grandma's photograph, testimonial, and care journey in marketing materials. It also identified Kendra as her primary caregiver since November. Jordan asked where the form came from. Mom said she'd witnessed it at Grandma's kitchen table. Grandma looked at her daughter. You brought me papers with the property tax forms. Mom's lips parted. I explained them. You said they were for Kendra's business license. They were. You didn't say she was selling my stroke. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Mom sat down. That was when I understood she hadn't merely defended Kendra after the fact. She had helped. Not with the portal form, apparently, but with everything that came after. Mom had watched Kendra build a business around Grandma's recovery. She knew the public story credited Kendra with work I had done. She knew Grandma didn't fully understand the release. And she decided the lie was acceptable because Kendra needed a success. Why? I asked. Mom looked at me with tired, frightened eyes. Because she was falling apart. So you gave her my work in Grandma's story? I didn't give her anything. You helped voluntarily. I helped my sister. I didn't build her a fake resume. She did care for Grandma. Yes, she did. Why wasn't the truth enough? Mom looked at the floor. Because we all knew the answer. The truth was messy. The truth was that Kendra had moved in because she needed housing. The truth was that I'd built the systems. The truth was that Grandma had improved through a combination of hospital treatment, therapists, neighbors, transportation staff, family help, and her own stubborn work. The truth didn't make Kendra look like a heroic founder. And the grant panel wasn't funding Messi. They were funding a clean origin story. Kendra had applied for $25,000 through a local aging services innovation fund. She had also received a provisional offer from a small group of investors led by a retirement community developer. Her documented caregiving experience with Grandma was central to both applications. The grant interview was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Mom looked at me. If this falls apart, she has nothing. Grandma answered before I could. She had me. Mom started crying. It was the kind of crying that made me want to comfort her automatically. I didn't. For once, I let the emotion belong to the person feeling it. Kendra finally returned to the hospital that evening. She stood near the doorway and asked if she could speak to Grandma alone. Grandma said no. Kendra's face tightened. Seriously? Yes. I'm not dangerous. Grandma looked at her for a long time. I don't know what you are right now. That hit Kendra hard. She sat down near the foot of the bed. For the first time since the nurse had read the date, she looked less angry than scared. I was trying to build something, she said. On top of me? Grandma asked. For us. There is no us on that website. There is you. I was going to pay for help once the grant came through. Better help. We could have renovated the bathroom and hired somebody during the day. With whose permission? I knew you'd say yes if Ray wasn't making everything sound suspicious. I almost responded. Grandma lifted one finger toward me. Not to silence me. To tell me she had this. You took her name off my medical form. You asked me to simplify things. I asked you to put larger numbers on the telephone. Kendra's mouth opened. Grandma continued. You told me Rachel was tired of me. I said she was overwhelmed. You said she wanted her life back. She did. I finally spoke. No, Kendra. You wanted my role without wanting the work attached to it. She turned on me. I lived in that house. I cleaned her bathroom. I woke up when she wandered at night. I listened to the same stories over and over. Don't you dare act like I did nothing. I'm not. That stopped her. Because she'd prepared to defend herself against an accusation I hadn't made. You did real work, I said. You also lied. Both things can be true. Kendra looked at Mom for help. Mom stared into her lap. I needed people to take me seriously, Kendra whispered. So you made Grandma stop taking herself seriously? I asked. Her face crumpled. I regretted the sentence as soon as I said it. Not because it wasn't true. Because I'd said it to wound her. That was one of my mistakes. Anger had made me sharp, and being right didn't make every cut necessary. Kendra left without saying goodbye. Grandma stayed in the hospital for 5 nights. During those 5 nights, I learned how much work I'd been doing without realizing it. People called me constantly. The pharmacy wanted clarification. Mom couldn't find Grandma's supplemental insurance card. Kendra had promised a home safety company access to the house, but hadn't confirmed a time. A therapist needed to know whether the hallway had grab bars. A church friend wanted to organize meals. Uncle Pete wanted daily updates, but became unavailable whenever anyone assigned him a task. Each time the phone rang, my body tried to become the old version of me. Answer. Solve. Smooth. Prevent discomfort. Instead, I began asking one question. Who owns this? Not who could do it fastest. Not who would do it best. Who had actually agreed to be responsible. Some calls still belonged to me. I was Grandma's authorized contact, and she wanted me involved in medical discussions. But Mom could locate an insurance card. Uncle Pete could call the home safety company. The church meal coordinator could speak directly with Grandma. Kendra's business promises belonged to Kendra. The family did not enjoy this system. Uncle Pete accused me of becoming corporate. Mom said I was treating love like a job description. I told her unclear responsibility was how Grandma had missed a blood test. That ended the conversation. The poisoned offer arrived on Grandma's 4th night in the hospital. Mom asked me to meet her and Kendra in the small chapel near the main lobby. I almost refused. Then Mom said, "We want to make this right." Those 6 words still had power over me. The chapel was empty except for a row of battery-operated candles and a wooden table beneath a stained glass window. Kendra had a slim black portfolio in front of her. She looked terrible. No makeup. Hair tied back. Dark circles beneath her eyes. Mom sat beside her. For once, they seemed nervous around me. Kendra slid 3 pages across the table. "I want you to join Golden Hour." I actually laughed. She didn't. "I'm serious." The proposal named me Director of Operations with 30% ownership. I'd manage transportation systems, provider coordination, scheduling, and quality control. There was a salary listed contingent on funding. It was almost $12,000 more than I made at paratransit. My son Caleb was in community college, and hoping to transfer to Virginia Tech $12,000 wasn't abstract money. It was tuition. It was fewer night shifts. It was a chance to build something I was genuinely qualified to build. And right there, in black and white, was recognition. My name. My role. My systems. Everything I'd quietly wanted while pretending I didn't care. Kendra spoke softly. "You were right. I couldn't have built the operation without you." I read the sentence again. Director of Operations, Rachel Maddox. Mom reached across the table. "This could be the thing that finally brings you girls together." There was another page beneath the offer. It was a statement. It said Grandma had expressed a desire to make Kendra her primary medical contact before the stroke, but the electronic form had been submitted later for administrative convenience. It said the February blood test had been delayed because of a scheduling misunderstanding. It said the family did not believe Kendra had acted dishonestly or endangered Grandma. At the bottom was a line for my signature. There it was. The price. Kendra watched my face. "It's accurate." "No, it isn't. Grandma and I had talked about me becoming the contact." "She says you didn't." "She doesn't remember every conversation. She remembers being dressed for the blood test." Kendra flinched. Mom squeezed my hand. "The statement doesn't excuse everything. It just gives context. It gives the grant panel a lie they can keep funding." "If Golden Hour disappears," Kendra said, "none of this helps Grandma. You canceled her appointment for a photo shoot. I made a terrible judgment call." "Then say that." I am saying it to you. Say it to them. Her eyes hardened. You want me humiliated. I want the truth to exist somewhere outside this chapel. Mom started to cry again. We can fix this privately. I looked at the ownership offer. 30%. Not half. Even in their apology, I was still being offered responsibility without equal control. Kendra would remain founder and chief executive. I would build the machinery. She would tell the story. Same family system. Better stationery. The worst part, I almost signed. I wish I could tell you I pushed the papers back immediately. I didn't. I pictured Caleb opening a Virginia Tech acceptance letter. I pictured myself leaving the dispatch room where I'd worked for 11 years. I pictured Mom introducing Kendra and me as business partners. I pictured my name on the website beside the systems I'd created. For maybe 5 minutes, I wanted the lie. Then I noticed the company's slogan printed at the bottom of the offer. Care that feels like family. That did it. I pushed the papers back. I don't want care that feels like our family. Mom recoiled. Kendra stared at me. I continued before I lost my nerve. In our family, the person doing the work is told not to keep score. The person taking the credit is told she finally found her purpose. And the person getting hurt is asked to stay quiet so nobody loses an opportunity. That's cruel, Mom whispered. No, it's clear. Kendra shoved the papers into the portfolio. So that's it. No. What else could you possibly want? I want you to correct the form issue. Withdraw Grandma's testimonial. Tell the grant panel the appointment was canceled for your photo shoot. And stop using my work unless we make a real agreement. I just offered you an agreement. You offered to pay me to certify your version of events. That isn't fair. I've spent my whole life being fair to people who treated fairness like an unlimited resource. Kendra stood. You think you're better than me. There was a time when I would have rushed to deny it. Instead, I said, I think I'm done being useful to lies. She left. Mom remained seated. Her voice sounded empty. You've always been so hard. I looked at her. No, Mom. I've always made hard things look easy. You confused the two. I walked back upstairs without the job, without the money, and without the moment of maternal recognition I'd wanted since I was 12. It hurt. Doing the right thing did not make it hurt less. But for the first time, the pain didn't make me turn around. The hospital scheduled Grandma's discharge conference the next morning. Grandma sat in a wheelchair wearing her pale blue cardigan. Mom sat near the wall. Kendra arrived at the last possible minute and chose the chair closest to the door. Jordan led the meeting. Patrice was there, along with a pharmacist, a physical therapist, and the hospital care coordinator. Nobody was there to punish Kendra. That frustrated her more than anger would have. Professionals calmly described what Grandma needed. Medication supervision for several weeks. A follow-up blood test within 3 days. Physical therapy. Transportation confirmation. A home safety review. A clear communication plan. Jordan asked Grandma where she wanted to recover. At home. Who would you like involved? Rachel. Mrs. Hanley. And someone who isn't related to me. Mom shifted in her chair. Grandma continued. I love my family. That doesn't make them qualified for every job. The pharmacist reviewed the missed lab. Kendra interrupted. I've already admitted I should have rescheduled it sooner. Patrice looked at her. Why was it canceled? Kendra's gaze moved toward me. I didn't answer for her. Mom didn't either. Finally, Kendra said, we had a business commitment. Grandma's voice was steady. You had a picture appointment. I had a blood appointment. Kendra looked down. Jordan explained that Grandma had revoked Golden Hour's permission to use her image and medical story. Kendra's head snapped up. You can't do that. The materials are already submitted. Grandma reached into the tote bag hanging from her wheelchair. She removed a printed photograph from the Golden Hour website. The blue bowl of lemons sat in the center. Grandma held it by the corner. You put this bowl on the table because the kitchen looked empty. Kendra said nothing. You told me to change my sweater because blue looked trustworthy. Grandma, you told me Rachel didn't want to do this anymore. I thought she didn't. You didn't ask her. Grandma placed the photograph on the table. You didn't ask me either. You kept asking questions until I gave you the answers you needed. Mom whispered. Mother, she was desperate. Grandma turned toward her. So was Rachel when her father left. Mom went completely still. You didn't give her permission to lie, Grandma said. You gave her chores. I'd never heard Grandma speak about my childhood that directly. Mom's eyes filled. Grandma looked at both of us. I told Rachel to do what needed doing and let it go. I said it so often I stopped noticing she was the only one doing anything. My throat tightened. Grandma wasn't finished. I made her dependable because it was convenient for me. Grandma, I said. No. Let me. She looked at Kendra. And I kept rescuing you because it felt kinder than expecting you to finish something. That wasn't kindness either. Kendra's face had gone red. So this whole meeting is about listing everything wrong with me? No, Grandma said. This meeting is about how I get home alive. Nobody moved. No one gasped. The pharmacist lowered her pen. Mom stared at the floor. Kendra pressed her lips together until they turned white. Then Patrice placed a copy of the contact form on the table. I need to clarify one final point, she said. This document authorized communication. It did not make anyone the owner of Mrs. Callahan's decisions. A contact line isn't control. Kendra began crying silently. I hated seeing it. That surprised me. After everything, part of me still wanted to cross the room and put an arm around her. I didn't. Compassion did not require me to interrupt the consequence. Kendra wiped her face. I really did love taking care of you. Grandma's expression softened. I know. I wasn't pretending about all of it. I know that too. I just needed one thing to work. Grandma nodded. And you decided the truth was the part that could fail. That was the reckoning. No screaming. No dramatic confession. Just one sentence Kendra couldn't turn into a misunderstanding. Grandma went home 2 days later. Not under Golden Hour's care. The hospital connected her with an independent geriatric care manager named Sonia, who came 3 mornings a week during the first month. Mrs. Hamley handled backup calls. I remained Grandma's primary medical contact because that was what she wanted, but we wrote down exactly what the role included. I would attend major appointments when I could. I would receive medical updates. I would not manage meals, household repairs, insurance paperwork, transportation, social visits, and every family member's feelings by default. Uncle Pete took responsibility for home maintenance from Arizona and paid a local company when he couldn't do it himself. Mom handled groceries every Tuesday. Aunt Diane organized church visits. Grandma kept her own calendar with Sonia's help. The first week was a mess. Mom bought the wrong bread and acted like I'd engineered it. Uncle Pete forgot to pay the grab bar installer. Aunt Diane scheduled 3 visitors on one afternoon. Grandma called me twice to ask whether I could just take over. Both times I nearly did. Then I reminded her that a new system feels inefficient before people learn their part. By the 3rd week, Mom knew which bread to buy. By the 4th, Uncle Pete had automatic payments set up. By the 5th, Grandma told me not to come on Tuesday because she and Sonia were going to a garden center. Apparently my absence had not caused civilization to collapse. The hospital's portal investigation found that Kendra had used Grandma's device and stored credentials to submit the contact form. Grandma chose not to pursue legal action, but the hospital documented the dispute and restricted Kendra's portal access. The Innovation Fund paused her grant application. When Grandma withdrew her testimonial and Kendra disclosed the circumstances of the missed appointment, the application was denied. The investors walked away. Golden Hour's website disappeared in March. For years, I'd imagined that consequences would make Kendra understand. They didn't. Not immediately. At first, they made her furious. She told relatives I'd sabotaged her business out of jealousy. She said Grandma had been manipulated while medically vulnerable. She accused the hospital of overreacting. Several relatives believed her because her version required less adjustment from them. Aunt Diane stopped calling me for 2 months. Mom spoke to me only about Grandma's schedule. I had won the practical argument and lost the family story. That was lonelier than I expected. I missed Kendra. Not the crisis. Her. I missed the way she could make Grandma laugh until she snorted. I missed the ridiculous voice messages. I missed being the first person she called with a new idea, even though half those calls eventually became unpaid assignments. Boundaries didn't erase love. They just stopped love from being used as a delivery system for harm. Caleb understood that before I did. He came home one weekend and found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at an old photograph of Kendra and me. "You gonna call her?" he asked. "I don't know. Do you want to?" "Yes." "Do you want the conversation you'll actually have, or the one you keep rehearsing?" I looked at him. "When did you get annoyingly wise?" "Probably from being raised by a dispatcher." I laughed. Then he said, "When I was little, I thought Aunt Kendra was the fun one." "She was. And I thought you didn't like holidays." That hurt. "Why?" Because you were always in the kitchen or on the phone or going back to the store. Everybody else looked like they were having Christmas. You looked like you worked there. Children notice the family system even when nobody explains it. Sometimes especially then. Why didn't you tell me? He shrugged. I thought that was what you wanted. There it was again. People had mistaken what I repeatedly accepted for what I wanted. I started changing smaller things after that. I let calls go to voicemail. I stopped bringing food to every gathering. When Mom asked me to organize Grandma's 85th birthday, I said I'd handle invitations or food, but not both. She chose invitations. Aunt Diane handled food. The cake arrived late. Nobody died. Grandma turned 85 in May. Kendra didn't attend. She sent a card but no flowers. Inside, she wrote, I'm not ready to be in a room where everyone knows what I did. I'm working on that. It wasn't an apology. It was the first honest sentence I'd received from her in months. Grandma placed the card beneath the blue bowl. After the party, I stayed to help with dishes. Not because everyone had left them for me. Because Grandma asked and I wanted to. That difference mattered. She washed. I dried. The blue bowl sat beside the sink. You can take that, Grandma said. The bowl. You've always liked it. It's yours. I know. That's why I can give it away. I ran my thumb along the chipped rim. For years, that bowl had represented Sunday dinner, obligation, and the quiet expectation that I would arrive carrying something. I don't want it yet, I said. Grandma nodded. Good, good. You used to take whatever job I handed you. I smiled. Maybe ask me again later. I will. Kendra called me in June. I almost didn't answer. Then I did. For the first 30 seconds, neither of us spoke normally. We sounded like strangers trying to confirm a dental appointment. Finally, Kendra said, I got a job. That's good. It's at a floral wholesaler. Do you like it? No. I laughed before I could stop myself. She laughed too. The tension cracked, but it didn't disappear. I'm paying Grandma back for the website and legal consultation costs, she said. A little every month. Okay. And I started seeing a therapist. Also good. You don't have to sound so surprised. I'm trying not to sound like anything. I know. That's your thing. I almost took the bait. Then she said, sorry. That was cheap. We went quiet again. I did care for her, she said. I know. I need you to know that. I've always known. I kept thinking if I admitted the bad parts, it would erase the good parts. It doesn't. That's not how Mom acts. No. Kendra breathed out. She always needed one of us to be okay. I knew what she meant. After Dad left, Mom couldn't handle two frightened children. So I became capable, and Kendra became fragile. Once those roles hardened, everything we did was interpreted through them. My silence proved I was strong. Kendra's mistakes proved she needed help. My anger was cruelty. Her anger was pain. Neither of us had been allowed to become a whole person. That explained us. It didn't excuse her. I'm sorry I told Grandma you were tired of her, Kendra said. My eyes filled immediately. Out of everything, that had been the deepest cut. Why did you say it? Because she kept asking whether we should call you. That's not a reason. I know. Then why? Because when she wanted you, I felt like a substitute. I sat with that. Kendra continued. And I wanted one room where I wasn't the person everybody expected to fail. So you made me the person who left. Yes. The honesty was ugly. It was also the first thing that gave us somewhere real to stand. I don't forgive you yet, I said. I know. I might. But it won't mean you get the same access. I know. And if you ever use Grandma's story publicly again, I won't. You don't know what I was going to say. I'm a little scared to find out. That was Kendra. Even then, she could make me laugh. We started speaking once every couple of weeks. Slowly. We didn't discuss business ideas. I didn't fix her resume. She didn't ask. Mom took longer. In August, she came to my house carrying a grocery store pie. No flowers. No paperwork. No crisis. She sat at my kitchen table and said, I thought you needed less because you asked for less. I asked for less because you acted overwhelmed whenever I needed anything. She winced. I don't remember doing that. I do. Mom folded the edge of the pie box. I was scared after your father left. You were so capable. I was 12. I know. No. I don't think you did. She began crying. This time, I moved the tissue box toward her. I didn't tell her it was fine. It wasn't. I was proud of you, she said. You were relieved by me. She looked up. There was a difference, and she knew it. I was both. Then why did you always protect Kendra? Because I thought failure would crush her. And me? I thought you could survive anything. That isn't the same as believing I should have to. Mom nodded slowly. No, it wasn't a perfect apology. She still defended herself. I still wanted more. But she stayed in the uncomfortable part of the conversation instead of asking me to let it go. That was new. A year after the nurse read the date on the form, Grandma was still living in her house. She used a cane outside and complained about Sonia's insistence that Ken's soup contained a criminal amount of sodium. Kendra visited every other Sunday. At first, Mrs. Hanley or I was always there. Later, Grandma asked for a few visits alone. That was her choice. Trust came back in inches. Not because everyone declared the family healed, but because Kendra began doing small things without turning them into evidence of who she was. She took Grandma to physical therapy and sent the confirmation number before anyone asked. She replaced groceries she used. She arrived when she said she would. She stopped posting Grandma online. Once, she canceled a visit because she was sick instead of showing up for appearance's sake. Strangely, that was when I first believed she might really be changing. The following spring, Grandma asked all of us to come for Sunday dinner. Mom brought chicken. Kendra brought rolls. I brought nothing. I had to repeat that because it still feels slightly illegal. I brought nothing. When I walked into the kitchen, the blue enamel bowl sat in the center of the table. Empty. Grandma handed it to Kendra. Fill this. With what? The rolls, Kendra. It's a bowl, not a spiritual exercise. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the counter. Kendra rolled her eyes and filled it. At dinner, nobody asked me to coordinate anything. Mom didn't praise one daughter while assigning work to the other. Grandma didn't tell anyone to let something go. We ate. We disagreed about a television show. Kendra complained about her boss. Mom asked Caleb about school. It was ordinary. That was the miracle. Afterward, Kendra carried the blue bowl to the sink. She washed it, dried it, and placed it in my hands. Grandma says it's yours. I looked across the kitchen. Grandma was pretending not to watch. You sure? I asked her. She nodded. If you want it. That was the difference. Not, you know what needs doing. Not, you're the only one I can trust. Not, take this because everyone else will break it. If you want it. I took the bowl home. I didn't fill it the following Sunday. For several months, it sat on a shelf near my kitchen window, empty except for the afternoon light. Then, on Caleb's 21st birthday, I filled it with the pasta salad he liked and carried it out to the backyard. My family was there. So were friends, co-workers, Mrs. Hanley and Sonia. Kendra had arranged flowers, but she'd asked first. Mom brought the wrong bread. Nobody corrected her. Grandma sat beneath an umbrella, giving unsolicited instructions about how much food should be on each plate. For once, I wasn't running the service. I was sitting at the table. That old bowl used to mean I had arrived carrying whatever everybody else needed. Now it means something simpler. I can bring something because I want to. I can leave it empty when I don't. Love isn't proven by how much of yourself you can quietly disappear. And being needed is not the same thing as being known.